Let's dig into a question that seems, pretty simple on the surface, but it actually tells this incredible story about the world economy. And it's this: how much do we really spend on our computers? I think the answer is going to surprise you.
I mean, come on, we've all been there, right? You're staring at a new laptop, maybe a fancy gaming setup, and that little voice in your head asks, is this normal, or am I just going completely overboard? It's a personal finance question that hits pretty close to home for most of us.
But here's the twist. What if the answer to that very personal question actually puts a pin on a map, a global economic map, and shows you exactly where you stand? It turns out how much you spend on tech says way less about your personal tastes and a lot more about where you happen to live.
Okay, so first things first, we need a starting point, a benchmark. So let's look at what a typical computer budget looks like in the United States, and we'll look at it over a 4-year cycle, since that's a pretty common time frame for people to upgrade.
All right, so on the lower end of the spectrum, you've got someone in the US spending around $2,000 over 4 years. This could be, a pretty decent budget-friendly laptop that they replace once, maybe throw in some basic accessories. Totally reasonable.
And then you've got the other side of the coin. For the power users, the creators, the hardcore gamers who need that top-tier performance, well, that number can easily shoot up to $4,000 and honestly, even higher. So for most folks, the sweet spot is somewhere in between.
So where do you see yourself? Are you the budget-conscious user hanging around that $2,000 mark? Are you more mainstream, maybe closer to 3? Or are you a power user pushing 4,000 or beyond? Go ahead and find your category, because we're about to put that number into a much, much bigger context.
Okay, got your number? Good. We have our US benchmark locked in. Now, let's pull back. Let's zoom way out and see how that number stacks up against the rest of the world. And trust me, this is where the story gets really wild. But hang on, before we dive into the global numbers, we got to talk about this one key idea. It's called purchasing power parity, or just PPP. All this is really is a clever way to adjust the numbers so we're comparing apples to apples. It just makes sure we're looking at what a dollar can actually buy in different places. It makes the whole comparison fair. And wow, just look at this. The difference is absolutely staggering. While North America and Europe are comfortably spending in the thousands, the numbers just fall off a cliff everywhere else. In South Asia, you're looking at maybe $300 to $1,200, and in sub-Saharan Africa, it can be as low as $150 over 4 whole years. That's not a gap, that's a chasm. So now that we have this huge new global perspective, let's go back to that original question. Where do you and your budget actually fit on the world stage? Well, to really get it, you have to look at 2 different kinds of average. The first is the mean, which is about $1,200. But that number gets pulled way up by all the high-spending countries. The real story is the median. That's the person literally in the middle of the pack. And that number is just $600. Let that sink in. Half the world's computer users spend less than $600 over 4 years. So here's the punchline. If your 4-year computer budget is around $3,000, what we called a totally mainstream budget in the US, you are in the top 20% of computer spenders on the entire planet. What feels completely normal in one place is, globally speaking, in the absolute top tier. This just begs a massive question, right? Why? Why is this gap so enormous? It's not just about some people wanting fancier tech. It's about deep, fundamental economic pressures that shape what people can even dream of affording. And it really boils down to a core economic truth. As people start to earn more money, the slice of their budget that they have to spend on absolute essentials, like food, gets smaller. And that's what frees up cash for other things, what economists call discretionary goods. And yeah, that's exactly where a new computer fits in.
You can see this trade-off crystal clear when you look at how budgets are prioritized. In sub-Saharan Africa, almost 30% of economic activity is just about food and drinks. When that much of your money is just going towards basic survival, there's very, very little left over for anything else.
Now flip that and look at North America. Here, food is only about 4% of the budget. The big financial pressures have shifted to things like healthcare and housing. There's just so much more room in the budget for that discretionary spending on stuff like tech. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? In so many parts of the world, the decision to buy a computer is in direct competition with putting food on the table. In wealthier nations, that's not even a consideration. The choice is more like, should I get a new gadget or go on vacation? It's a completely different world. So, does this mean the gap is permanent? Is it just baked into the system forever? Well, not exactly. If you look at the projections for the future, they start to tell a very different and, honestly, a more hopeful story.
Check this out. The most interesting number on this chart isn't the total amount spent. It's the column on the right, the growth rate. Sure, North America will keep spending more, but look at South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. Their spending is set to explode by 20, 30, even 40%. They're catching up, and fast.
And that right there is the real headline for the future. The gap is closing. It's happening slowly, but it's happening. The single biggest driver of change in the global tech market isn't some new invention. It's the rise of a global middle class finally getting enough purchasing power to make tech a priority.
So, the next time you find yourself staring at that price tag on a new computer, remember what we talked about. That number, it isn't just about the machine. It's a coordinate. It's a little data point that tells a huge story about your place in the world, a story of economics, priorities, and progress. It tells you exactly where you stand on the global map.